Joining us now is former White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney, also Senior Advisor at Bondi Partners. Mick, thank you so much for coming on the program tonight. I really am so keen to talk to you about these devastating floods in southeast U.S., particularly in North Carolina. I know this is your part of the country. It sounds absolutely horrific. We've heard a little bit from Annalise Nielsen on it. But tell us more about how people are going and why, frankly, the media isn't making more of an issue about this, because I remember George W. Bush's presidency being all but destroyed over claims he failed in his response to Hurricane Katrina.
James, two separate questions. The situation here, in about 80 miles north of where I'm sitting, has been and continues to be dire. It looks like most of the dams, it's a very mountainous region, and it has been used for the last 100 years for hydroelectric power. And there are probably 6 or 8 dams, some of which are 100 years old, on this river system. We were at risk of losing one or more of those over the course of the weekend. It looks like that risk has subsided, as it has in the mountainous states of Tennessee, Georgia, and South Carolina as well. I know folks in Australia might not sort of associate the East Coast with mountains, but we do have some mountains here, and they can get really, really rough in heavy rain. It's going to be years, James, before some of these towns rebuild, if they are able to do so. Some of them have quite literally, some of the mountain towns that lie at the bottom of a valley have been completely wiped out. I have a friend of mine in a lake house up in the mountains, and said that the entire lake is covered with debris, and they're dragging at the bottom of the lake looking for dead bodies. That's the type of situation we find ourselves in. I think on the second half of the question,
God, that's horrific.
as to how it really is, and it's going to get, there's still thousands of people missing, so it's going to get worse before it gets better. On the politics of it, or the media coverage of it, let's wait and see. My recollection is similar to yours about George Bush getting blamed for the response to Hurricane Katrina, but I don't remember if it started 2 or 3 days later, or if they gave him some time to try and get things running better, and they just simply failed at that.
Yeah, fair enough, fair enough. And we all hope for the best for everybody who's suffering from this terrible tragedy. But I want to move on now to this other story about other sort of chaos in the country. There's been this threatened dock workers strike over a pay dispute between port employers and members of the International Longshoremen's Association. And this has put some pressure on supply chains. We've just had some breaking news that the union may have cut a deal for a, get this, 62% pay rise over the next few years, which is nice work if you can get it. But the thing that really struck me here is that in all of this, Kamala Harris seemed to endorse the strikes, saying that foreign-owned shipping companies have made record profits. That seems to be putting unions ahead of the supply chain and the needs of ordinary people. What's your read on all of this, Mick?
You know, James, it's interesting because I've not seen that breaking news as you and I sit here and chat, but let me suggest this. What Kamala Harris said was exactly the right thing to say if you knew that there was going to be a deal announced the next couple of hours. Think about that. Look, this was not going to be a difficulty politically until the dock strike went out for about a week or more. If only went a couple of days, that would not really impact the flow of goods onto the shelves. Keep in mind, this was every single port between Boston and Galveston, Texas. So it's the entire East Coast of the United States. This would have been a big deal. At the household level, that economics issue, the kitchen table issues going into the weeks before an election. But that's not going to be the case if this thing really has been resolved here tonight. But if you're Kamala Harris and you knew the fix was in, why not come out and say great things about the unions? Because other people aren't going to care because they didn't hit their pocketbook yet.